Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction and to keep oneself unstained from the world. Specifically there to visit orphan, like e- even if even if you're not gonna adopt or foster, like, go spend time with these kids, go spend time with these families, invest in the people who have a calling to do this and have chosen to sacrifice their time and their life um to do this and help out because it's literally what we're called to do. It's the purest form of our religion with God is visiting orphans and widows.
That verse is
Um,
always why I hated people saying, well, I love Jesus, but I'm not religious. It's like, I mean, again, I get what they're going for, but
yeah,
it says true religion is
yeah,
this,
Hmm. Yep.
like religion is a good thing when it's true,
yeah.
pure and undefiled, as it says.
All right, guys, what is up? We're back with another episode, and we have Mr. James Troy Barker in the house today. How are you, sir?
Doing good. How are you guys?
Doing
I
good.
shouldn't throw the full name out there just right off the bat. I'm throwing it all out there, but this was my OG best friend right here. So
I was just to
uh
say, you've called me many names throughout the years that you could have used there, so I'll take my legal one.
yeah, exactly,
Seems
exactly.
decent.
There's much worse. Yeah. Hey, I love it. Oh, James, my favorite book of the Bible, and Troy Eubanks was, I mean, one of the best around. So, you can't go wrong there. So,
Yep. Yep. I agree.
well, Mr. Jamie, tell everyone about yourself, who you are. For those of who may not know, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you want people to know.
Well, as you two fine fellas, I'm from Smackover, born and raised. I don't know that Blake was born and raised in Smackover. We'll claim him.
Yeah,
Born out
I
right.
remember.
All right, close enough. So, grew up there. Went to Washita where I met my wife. She's from Little Rock, and so moved to Little Rock shortly thereafter. Had planned to go to medical school my whole life. Um, it's a real long story. I don't know how long we got. We can get into it later if you want to, but
Long as
didn't
you
go to
want.
didn't go to med school. Ended up taking a job. I just got married right before I finished college, and so I took the job. My wife's going to have another year in nursing school, and thought, I'll take a year off, go back to med school in the fall, following year, work till she's done, and then she'll be working, and I'll go back to school. That didn't happen. God had different plans, and I went to work for the person who is the now governor of the state of Arkansas, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Took a job with her, did that for a little over a year till that job expired. Campaign jobs tend to do that. And I have done politics and been in and around it in some capacity ever since then. I did manage to convince my wife not to move back to Smackover, but we did last summer finally get out of town, which has been awesome. Actually, as I was getting on here and Blake was on, I was checking my phone because I went and put batteries in my dead game camera out back that went out last week, and got deer right there every night and woods for the kids to run around in, and crows and rabbits and anything else shoot BB guns at, and it's been awesome. So
That's awesome. That's
yeah,
awesome, man. Yeah, it is funny with Allie being the city girl. She took to Smackover quite a bit, like that, and of course, your dad and mom just were like open arms. Like if there's any way we can get Jamie back, I'm sure they were like, yeah, come live here.
I'm
So
pretty sure if I called them right now, they'd be here in just 2 hours or less, whatever legal amount of time it takes to drive here, and with
yeah,
a bunch of boxes ready to go. There's a great
yeah.
story. First time I took Allie to Smackover, two things happened that always stick out that I think are funny. One is we went down to Steve Lawrence's river place. My dad was down there as a golf tournament of some sort. And so she went with me. And so we're driving in, and the first person we see kind of coming to pass us is Mark Corley. And
Uh-huh.
so, we did what you do on that little road, and we kind of pulled over, and he kind of pulled over, didn't recognize my car. And so he stopped and he said, hey, and I said, hey, and he's like, who's this? And I was like, oh, this is Allie. And he's like, well, that's not the little girl you had down here last weekend. Didn't
Yes,
think a thing
yes.
of it, kept driving. Next person we see, Tim Corley. he does the same thing, stops. He's like, "Now that's not the little brown-headed girl I saw with you last week." Didn't think anything of it, kept going. Get to Steve's place, introduce Allie to my dad and to Steve, and, uh, Steve says something to the effect of, "Now, wait, I thought her name was Tracy or whatever."
Yeah.
Still didn't think a thing of it. Like 2 hours later, Allie hadn't said a word to me this whole time we've been there, and I'm finally like, is she having a good time? Like, what's wrong? We've been out on a boat, felt like a great first place
Yeah.
to go type thing. And I was like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Who'd you have down here last week?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" I mean, because it was so foreign to me, having heard people
Yeah.
say that kind of thing forever. She did not find it funny and did not realize it was a joke. She's like, "Every single one of these guys keeps talking about some brown-headed girl named Tracy you had down here last week." And so I went to my dad and I was like, "Hey, Dad, what was the name of that girl I had down here last week?" He's like, "What girl? You didn't have no girl down here last week." So that
There you
happened.
go.
We play the golf tournament. I end up taking her to my Grammy's house, which
Uh-huh.
has 2 ponds on either side of it. I'm like, "Hey, like, we're out here. Let's go fish." So we walked off to the pond next door. We only had what was in the barn, which was 2 rods that are probably older than me, 2 corks and 2 hooks, and, the worms we could find flipping some logs. So we cast it out there, and I was telling her, I was like, "Hey, don't get hung up on this log when you're reeling it in, avoid these lily pads, whatever. What do I do? Like, second cast, I get snagged." And without hesitation, she just hauls off into this pond. What she does not know is this pond has been stagnant for 10 years and is disgusting and mostly mud at this point. Um, and so she just goes out there and gets it. And, I think in her head, it's this like, I can be a redneck woman too type thing.
Yeah.
And she comes up out of that mud, and from shoulder down, it's just caked in the greenest, nastiest mud that, exists. And she hates when I tell that story, but man, it was funny to me.
Well, and like, that's one of those things where it's like, even as someone who grew up in the country, like, I'm not getting off in that. Like,
That's what I told her. I said, "There's no chance I was hauling off in that pond to go get 1 cork. We'd have just fished
yeah,
1 pole or gone home."
yeah, yeah. Oh man, there's you brought up an interesting thing, like, and I always think about this, like, whenever you take someone to Smackover for your first time, because there's not a lot of things to do. Um, what is like, what is each of y'all's? Obviously, Jamie, I'm sure you take people to the golf course, or like Blake. What's your thing if you were gonna bring someone to Smackover for the first time?
I don't know, dude. Be
Well,
honest with you.
I gave you most of what mine was. We did the golf course for Allie's first, Saturday night was spent dancing with LaRon. Um, that's a cultural experience you can't get anywhere else. We
Thankfully,
did we did Pizza Pro, which she did not believe me was the best pizza on earth.
I thought
She's
about
now a
saying Pizza
believer.
Pro. Yeah.
She's now a believer. Uh, we went and saw my grandma. That's a good normal,
yeah,
rural Southern thing. Um, and we just did the Pine Hills weekend. I don't know any better way to do it.
no, no,
I would
yeah,
have wanted to take them to the old sumac. That's what I want. Like, I want to take you in there and watch you. Just let you listen to the conversations that are going on at those
yeah,
tables, dude. Like when I was a kid, you go in there and Mallory Neal would be like cussing the people out in the back.
yeah. Yeah, and
Like
and
where
then
am I
wave on
at?
his and then wave on his way out. See y'all
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Like where am I, dude? I just wanted a Mountain Dew.
I
Speaking of the Mountain Dew made me think of one other thing we did smack over that's still stuck with Allie to this day, which is, in high school, I'd leave school, I'd go to the gas station right there, you know, at the BP, which has not been BP for I don't know how long, but a long time.
yeah,
And I'd get 2 Crispitos and a Mountain Dew, and I'd go to the golf course. And so on the way after, I guess, Sunday church, we're going to the golf course to make the 1 o'clock tee time. I was like, "Hey, we're gonna run in here and get some lunch." Well, she walks in and she's like, "Where's the lunch?" And I was like, "No, no." So I got like 5 Crispitos, got in the car. She, of course, is like, "I'm eating food from a gas station. What is a Crispito?" And now,
yeah,
there's the gas station driving from Little Rock towards Smackover, the other way, kind of between Sheridan and Little Rock. It's a great gas station right there.
mhm. Oh, yeah,
Always has hot Crispitos. And so
yeah.
typically it's now become a thing with
Michelle,
our
right?
kids. Yes, yeah. It's
Yeah,
become a thing with our kids too now, where we stop, we get Crispitos on the way down to Smackover.
Landon likes the
Because
quarter game there.
oh yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
Landon loves the quarter game. Landon
I
has to
do.
play it anytime you go. I don't remember how many times we've been in there, Landon, like throughout the years, but I feel like you always had to play the quarter game in there.
I
I
think Mr.
did.
Tommy I think Mr. Tommy and Miss Beth got on to me and landed on a youth trip one time playing that quarter game.
Yeah.
Gambling, baby. It's gambling.
Hey, it's not gambling if you know you're gonna win. I don't know.
Facts.
Yeah. Oh, man. Like, I figured you would have had to have said that you would have taken someone to Spoon Bend. But, I mean, I guess that's not technically
Definitely.
Smackover, but it's
Yeah,
part of the
yeah.
Smackover experience, you know?
Definitely. I hadn't been to Spoon Bend in a long time, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Spoon Bend. I think about that all the time, man. Like, even now, because I live in a, like, much bigger area, so if I go to I'll go get on the Red River, all like, I wouldn't say all the time, but I used to a lot more than I do now. But even then, like, any boat ramp is, like, way nicer, and then also a much bigger deal. Like, there's, like, a
Yeah.
lot of people there, and dude, like, I had a key. I don't even remember where it was. I had a key to some boat ramp down there on the Washita River. It's just like,
Yeah.
for some
Yeah.
reason, go through this gate, drive through the middle of nowhere, go through this gate. There's a boat ramp. I had a key to it. I don't even know. My dad gave it to me. I don't know I don't know
Yeah.
whose it was. I think it was
Yeah.
Cross. I think it was Cross Souls. Uh, but dude, like, yeah, we would go put in down there.
Yeah.
Or even if you went to Spoon Bend, like, how many times would just be the only one there
Yeah.
putting in your
You
boat?
you hope you hoped you were the only one who didn't know what was going
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a little sketchy if you weren't, but
We
yeah, I kinda
old
like you just
old
can't get
Smoking Dave and
forget
the River Gypsies, you know?
dude, I wonder what he's up to.
There's no telling. There's no telling.
I
I,
always think, like, people like that are dead, dude, but those are the ones that are still kicking, bro. He's probably still out there doing his thing.
The same
you
thing.
know, I saw something the other day, which I'm sure a lot of people know this, but I had heard it for the first time that the least affected group of people from COVID, do you know who they
Mhm.
were?
Smokers.
Heavy
Smokers and nicotine
smokers.
users.
Yeah. 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 I'd heard that for the first time and I was like, That's hilarious that
Do we listen
that
to the same podcast? Is it on, I don't know. I just heard that. That's the
I
craziest thing
saw
to
a
hear that.
reel. I saw a reel. I've ran out
Okay.
of time for podcasts these days and just
You
catch the
saw a
reels
clip
of
of Dr. Peter McCullough talking to Joe Rogan about smokers being the least affected, and there's a
That's
probably
study
exactly
out
what
of
it
so.
was.
Yeah.
I did
study,
too,
Yep.
because I
study
haven't
out
even
of
listened to
Sweden.
Joe Rogan forever, so
Yeah. Yep. That's it. That's it. There we are.
And we're gonna get on COVID and go down a real rabbit hole here on this thing that no one anticipated.
well, if they banned us, only like 100 people won't be able to watch this, so I think we'll be okay.
Yeah. Dude, I think if I was gonna take someone to well, like, whenever I take someone to Smackover, like, one of my things that I would normally do would just be, like, go through the oil field roads because,
Mm.
like, riding those so much growing up, I didn't realize, like, to us, it's like, "Okay, yeah, I know I need to take a left here," everything wise so many times, and it's just you know where to go, but, to people who've never been down there, they're like, what are we doing right now? And, they're questioning whether you're taking them to kill them or you actually know where you are. And
So what
Well,
we're
you
doing
know,
right now is trespassing. That's what we're
allegedly.
doing. That's what we're doing right now. We're
yeah.
trespassing.
But don't
Well,
worry, we
you
know
remember
them.
in high school, or I guess my late high school, early college, so it would have been when I met Allie and brought her to Smackover. We'd bought that house out on what we called Old Camden, what Camden people all
Yeah.
called Old
Yeah.
Smackover. And so our driveway, if you turned into our driveway, bent to the right to pull up to our house, but if you just kept going straight, that was an oil field road all the way back there.
Yeah.
You could take it and ride forever. So I guess that was actually something we did when Allie came that first time. Was we did the same thing. It just in my head that was just like a normal thing that we did. It was
Yeah.
actually cool. I went and picked up a new side by side probably 3 weeks ago now.
Mhm.
And so while I was down there, uh, Grammy and some of that side of the family still has various parts of Mount Holly that's timberland. And it's got a bunch of logging roads, and I knew they just logged it. And so I told the boys, I was like, hey, if you'll go with me to pick this thing up, I was meeting a guy that was like outside Monroe or something. And I was like, if you'll go with me, we'll go ride around and, see if we see snakes or, fish the pond out there or whatever. And so we did it. And I mean, they would have been out there until pitch black dark. And at the end, they were asking if we can do it again. And I was like, yeah, did you have fun? They're like, yeah. And Trip goes, well, Dad, the only bad thing? I was like, no, what? He goes, we don't get to do it again tomorrow. Like,
There you go. There you go.
Dude,
But
the amount of four-wheeler riding in Smackover is unreal. I just thought about it, like, just a minute ago when he was talking about oil field roads. Jamie, where y'all used to live when we were kids, right there where your road tees off, you could
mhm,
hop on that high line right there, and I just, in my mind, just went all the way to the golf course
Yeah.
in the
You
woods.
mhm.
Literally, because you go and
yeah,
cross the road, like, 3 times. Like, you could
yeah,
go all the way to the high line by where my house is, all the way to John Thornton's backyard,
Yeah.
hop out on the road right there, go right down there, and you're on an oil field road that's gonna take you out to Artesian.
Artesian well.
It
Yep.
takes you out to the golf course, and you could literally go from your house to the golf course in the woods on trails on the four-wheeler.
yeah,
Freaking nuts.
yeah. It's
We didn't
insane.
know how
It
good we
was
had it.
I know,
yeah.
I know.
And now, dude, I still remember the first time I went home after they clear cut the woods next to mine and yours house, the pipeline, you know? And
The nerve.
yeah, dude, it hurt. It actually like I'm not a very sentimental person, like at all. But whenever I looked at that, it just kind of hit me different because, like, dude, that was like all my memories from by my house, was stuff there. I mean, before we had four wheelers, we were riding bikes over down those pipelines, playing hide and go seek in town,
Remember somebody
on
stole my
bikes.
mongoose out there. I left my mongoose out there, and somebody took it. It was one of those chrome joints with the 4 with the that had the pegs all the way around.
Yeah, it
Somebody
was
has some
sweet.
sticky fingers out there, man.
I had a red Huffy. That thing was sweet.
You had a Huffy?
But no, I had a mongoose.
Yeah.
It was a maroon mongoose as well too. Both of us had
Mm,
pegs. That was
mm.
where me and Blake became friends. Was he was like, dude, I ride my bike to school all by myself. I went home the next day. I was like, Mom, I don't want to ride with you to school the next day. I'm gonna ride my bike with Blake tomorrow. Sure enough, that
Your
was every
mom was
day
like,
after that.
you're not doing that.
Yeah,
Can't
I
ride.
was thinking,
You're not riding to school with the poor kids."
The nicest
"Damn."
bike I ever had was a Huffy. It was brand new. It was green. It had this like orange. It wasn't a flame. It was like the paint job of the Huffy logo was like
Yeah,
orange. It kind of looked like a flame. Yeah, it was sweet, man. I was so pumped about it, and I'd had it for not that long. And Mom was driving down up McDonald Hill there, and this kid was in my grade. Had just moved into town actually, was on his bike and just blew through a stop sign, and she's in her minivan and just clips the back tire of this kid on his bike. He was fine. I mean, it didn't like hurt him, but she did hit that back wheel and bent it. And instead of replacing the wheel, of course we took him home and she talked to his mom. They were super cool about it. And, it was his fault. He ran the stop sign. She's obviously not looking for a kid on a bike while driving on the road. They're supposed to stop, whatever. Parents were super chill about it. Well, Mom gets home and has this grand idea that she's going to offer this gesture of apology. So what does she do? She gives him my brand new bike. Went back to
That's
the old one.
dirty, man.
yeah, yeah.
I still
What
give her a
is
hard
it
time
about
about that one.
what is it about flames, bro, that was the coolest? If something had flames on it,
What do you? Hang on. What do you mean was the coolest?
I was fixing to say, I was
Because
like,
I
fire is
guess
still cool.
yeah,
touche, man. I don't know. I just don't like it. Doesn't. It's. I just remember that mongoose I had. The treads on the wheel on the tires were shaped like flames, and
See,
I
that's
just
awesome.
remember, dude. Yeah, I could go in my house and then I would think about those tires, and I would have to go outside to look at them again. Maybe touch them. I don't know. I can't explain it. I wouldn't do that now though. If I had a bicycle out here with flames, I would just be like, oh yeah, there's a bike out there with flames. But I remember like being so pumped about that bike, I have to go look at it again. Just gotta go outside and
yeah.
look at it.
Like I've got to bring up I've got to bring up a Facebook post that I saw this week that you commented on that I was in the same boat with you. Yeah, I'll see if you
Oh, it
are as
can't
well
be
too or not,
good.
Jamie. Uh, there was a post on Facebook, and we won't name names, but the person said, "When did we
Oh,
stop eating sloppy joes?" And Blake, you hammered it, nail on the head of we did not stop eating sloppy joes, and so that I guess that's my question is
I don't think I said that on the post.
have
I said I ain't never gonna stop eating sloppy joes.
oh yeah, there's a lot of other people that was like
Ain't
uh
never gonna stop.
I don't know who
Sorry.
we is, but I don't know if he was just rage baiting or if he's quit eating uh, sloppy joes because he's above us now.
I don't know.
Well,
He posted that he was cooking some, so it looked like maybe
Okay.
he's got to start back. Sorry,
Yeah.
Jamie.
well, we certainly can't let our culture die off. So first off, we need to state that
Yeah.
up front. We had sloppy joes in my house less than 2 weeks ago, and they've already been requested to come back for another night. So
Yeah. And
Y'all ever slap cheese on it?
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
can't say
Big
that I
cheese
do.
fan.
I just
Big cheese
sloppy
fan on my
joe
sloppy joes.
and bun.
So I wasn't raised on cheese either, Jamie. But at some point, I think I kind of transitioned to cheese. Somebody had me slap some cheese on a pulled pork sandwich one time, and I was like, okay, I wouldn't do it every
I
day, but
mean,
it was all right. Slapped it on that sloppy Joe. Give it a
can
minute.
you use the cheese to mitigate against the sloppy, like almost like an
It's tough.
adhesive?
It's
Well,
tough, and if you're not careful, you got a cheese sandwich.
and
Yep.
here's the thing too. We all know a sloppy joe is served right off the pan. That thing, you gotta let it cool down for a second. But the good thing is it melts that cheese right on top of there, but it doesn't
That's
make
what
it
I'm
any less sloppy. It's
okay.
still full on sloppy. Maybe just
Okay.
a little less Joe.
We did fried bologna sandwiches. My kids, and I guess Allie had probably seen some of it, but we watched right before spring break. We finished Duck Dynasty, like the original Duck Dynasty. I don't even remember how we started it. It was just we were looking for a show. Like right now, we're watching Full House. We watch a show as a family, so we were looking for something that was like we could all watch it. Whatever. I guess we started it. It was kind of the tail end of duck season, and somehow got on it. And so we watched the whole show. And in it, at some point, Willie's got a diner or something. They talk about fried bologna sandwiches, and so the kids are like, "Well, what's a fried bologna sandwich?" And I was like, "I can't believe that you never had one." So we did them one night. Then we did them a couple nights, and then my kids have camp this week, and Allie's telling them last night they got to go make lunches to take to camp with them. And what do they go make? They want to go make fried bologna sandwiches. Now they're not allowed to
Bologna
fry.
sandwich.
They're not allowed to fry them, so they just microwaved them with some cheese on it. Took that, but
There you
Go
go.
ahead.
It can't be that bad. Yeah.
That sounds
So
so nasty. Go microwave. I'm gonna go microwave some cheese on it. I know why too, so you get it melted good.
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Hey,
Does it
you
does it
eating a
give it a
cold bologna
crisp?
sandwich? No,
No, you're
it's
right.
just
You're
hot
right.
bologna.
Okay.
It, I so I never had this until, which I guess, I mean, it's just fried spam, which is a common thing. But I think maybe Tyler Jordan's the person who introduced me to this. But spam fries, you just cut them into
Oh
the
yeah.
shape of fries
He's
and then deep fry
he's
them.
the one.
My gosh,
He showed it to me too.
yeah,
I'm
that
not a
was
spam person.
We used to cook at Miss Phillips' class.
yeah.
Smackover
All
home ec summed up in one
all
sentence. We used to cook
dude, all the time.
freaking spam fingers.
We did.
Yeah.
We did spam fingers and eggs.
Oh,
When was
man.
the last time
I'd
you
be
guys had
saying
a
bad words.
when was the last time y'all
Go
had a
ahead.
fish stick?
Oh,
Wow. You didn't have to do us like that, Landon. It's been a while for
I
me. I hadn't had one in a
I can't
long
I
answer
think
time.
that either.
I think I ate too many fish sticks as a kid to ever want to eat another fish stick again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could eat
See,
one now. They
I
sound
wasn't a
good.
big I was not a big fish stick family at our house. We had our fair share of meals, but you only eat what your parents want to eat. You learn that as a parent. And but yeah, we weren't a big fish stick family. So I've only had fish sticks honestly a handful of times in my life. I'm
We
sad
did them
about
a
it,
fair,
honestly.
we did them a fair amount, but it was never a meal that I was like, oh yay, fish sticks. It was just like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, I'm hungry and it's hot and it's fried and it's fine.
You got some French fries and a little ketchup, you'd be all right.
Yeah. Well, my mom was
Get you
not big
by.
on fried things, period. So typically, even if we had pizza or fish sticks or something like that, we were going to have green beans and probably some other vegetable with it. And if you wanted more of the pizza or the fish sticks, you had to eat your green beans and whatever else. We did. She would fry potatoes, and I love when she did fried potatoes. Um, but we typically had something very healthy if we were going with something probably not so healthy.
So whenever Jamie and I were very young, uh, we would spend, like, especially during the summer, both of our moms were teachers, so they would take us out to the golf course as soon as we woke up. So a lot of times we would just spend the night at each other's house. I think one time we went like 2 weeks
2
straight
weeks. Yep.
of like either one of our, not one person's house every night. We would just alternate. But I loved going over to Jamie's house because they had, fresh fruit, all kinds of, different things there. I was like pumped about that. Jamie loved coming over to my house because my mom's like fried pork chops and all this. We're getting a little bit of both, but and then my mom was like, "Well, you like fresh fruit so much over at Jamie's house, I'll get some." So she buys fresh fruit at our house, and I think every time I let it go
It's not, yeah, it's
bad,
not the same.
it's not the same. It's not the same.
Uh, there's
Yeah.
something about that. Like I remember my mom and stepdad still give me a hard time because I'd had pimento cheese somewhere, and I, like, really liked pimento cheese. I was like, "I really like it," and they got me some Mrs. Weaver's because you gotta have Mrs. Weaver's if you eat pimento
Yeah.
cheese, and, they bought me, like, a big thing of it. I just had to have it, and I don't think I touched it, like, all summer long, and it's in there mildewing in the refrigerator. There's something
Yeah.
about eating something at somebody else's house, though. It's just like it's just I don't know,
Yeah.
it's just different.
It's fantastic. You brought up, talking about fish sticks, and then you talking about sumac earlier. Whenever we went down to Smackover not too long ago, and I took my 2 boys, my 2 older boys with me. Hayes and my wife were supposed to go as well too, but, I think Hayes was sick, so it was just me and the big boys. And, so we get down there and we're heading back. I'm like, "Y'all want some catfish?" They're like, "Yeah." They love catfish. So we stop out at Sumac, and, I don't even know who the person was serving back there, but, like, he actually hurt me because, I was like, we'll take, uh, those last 4 pieces of catfish there." And he goes, It's fish. I don't know what kind of fish it is, but it's not catfish." And I'm like, you don't have to say that, man. Just be like, "Okay," then we're fine, you know?
So did
Right.
you eat it?
I was gonna say that
Oh,
as soon
yeah.
as you
Yeah, it
started
was
saying
fantastic. Yeah, yeah. I ate it, and it's
fish and
fantastic.
sumac, I was like, I
Yeah.
don't know if there's any catfish involved in that, Landon.
I still
It
do y'all remember, Johnny Paul's restaurant out there? It went through a few different names, but it was on Highway 82.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
called it 82 West for a while. I can't
Mhm.
remember all the names it went through, but before, I think it's a Mexican restaurant now, but before that is John Paul Darden's, and
Oh,
I s
I know what
I
you're talking about.
I still have a vivid memory of, and I loved eating at that place, but I always got he did these Cajun grilled shrimp, and even as young as I can remember, that was what I liked to get there. But one day, I mean, I'm probably 8, 9, 10 years old tops, old enough to have a conversation, but not old enough to pick up on when an adult is setting me up. And
Mhm.
I guess we'd stopped and gotten catfish at Sumac or BP. I don't even remember where it was, but we got catfish and we got at the golf course. And I was starving or whatever. And I started eating on it. And I literally said to my dad, I was like, "Dad, this is the best catfish I've ever had." So we get the golf course. First person we see is John Paul, and I'm still eating the catfish. And Dad's like, uh, "John Paul, Jamie's really liking this catfish." And John Paul's like, "Oh, you like catfish? I cook catfish." And da 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 da. And Dad said, "Yeah, tell him what you said." And I said, "I told Dad this is the best catfish I ever had." Dad says something along the lines of, "Yep, you couldn't beat a gas station," to John Paul. And of course, then he gave me a hard time. And I still have this vivid memory of like, oh man, did I really just like grossly offend this man's livelihood?
Yeah,
He owns a
Insulted.
restaurant. I didn't think about what I was saying. I just was telling him I liked the catfish. But
well, and one thing I didn't realize as well too is, like, that's not a normal thing to just have catfish, or have fish in your hot box at your gas station. Because, like, that's something that my dad talks about of, like, it's like, "Man, what I'd do for some good gas station catfish right now." And I'm like, Your gas station don't have catfish down there?" It's like, "No, no."
I'm gonna be
So,
honest, I'm finding out right now that's not a normal thing in other places.
yeah,
Really?
yeah,
I guess I never
yeah,
thought
We
about it.
definitely have it.
yeah. Is that, I mean, I'm assuming Louisiana, like, that's a normal
We
thing
got
down
it.
there too. Yeah,
We
yeah,
got pizza sticks and Crispitos heavy here too, man. I get them all the
yeah,
time. Hate to admit
yeah.
it. I do.
They're hard to beat. They're hard to beat.
Big pizza stick guy, man. Big time.
Yeah. There's a ratio. It's
There is.
it's 2 to 3 Crispitos to every 1 pizza stick.
I could co-sign that. Yeah.
You can't go wrong with that.
Uh,
Yeah.
mm-mm.
And but I mean, Jamie, there's if I remember correctly, your wife like likes the crunchy part at the end, right? Is that
Match
am I
made in
making that
heaven.
up or
You are not. You're spot on. She takes the first bite, I eat the good part, and then she eats the last part.
You guys are made for each other, dude.
I
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Because
It's
that
like my
part's like
wife.
the not to me. That's like the worst part.
Yeah,
Agreed. I
I
Yeah.
pinch it
like
off and throw it back in the bag.
whenever I eat corn dogs, I eat the whole corn dog, and then my
Yeah,
wife
you
eats the
do.
little crunchy. My wife eats the little crunchy on the stick. So we're pretty special too.
Really? No.
We had a
I
dog.
thought you were.
We had a
No, dude.
dog
I
that
I
would
was
saw.
at
do
a
that.
loss.
Yeah.
I was lost for words on that one. I was like, that's a really small part of a corn dog
That's
to
not
enjoy.
much. Yeah, that's not much to be excited.
Playing his rationing
Nothing
food
goes to
against his
waste,
wife.
you know.
He's like, yeah, she gets to smell the corn dog while I eat it.
How lucky is she?
Yeah, generous.
Oh man. So my wife got us into an interesting situation here recently where she accidentally stole a fridge. Um, have y'all's wives ever done something like that?
Mm-mm.
You're gonna have to give me
Okay.
some more information before I answer that one.
Well, so we just moved into this house in January. We're buying a bunch of stuff all at once for the house. And she's like, I'm going to get this fridge. She's like, I don't want to pay all the money up front. So she's like, I'm just going to do the little financing thing, get it delivered to the house. Well, okay, whatever. So she forgot. She didn't, I don't know what happened, how the mix up happened. But whenever she got the email that said, your first payment is coming out next week. If you believe you received this in error, mark here. I don't even know who the loan company was that she did this through, but she's just thinking it should be Lowe's. So she's like, oh no, I have not done that. So she hits it and they're like, okay, we'll start a fraud investigation. Well, then it hits her. She's like, oh, this is the fridge. And so then she goes back and emails them. And she's like, hey, I made a mistake. That is us. They're like, okay, well, no worries. We still have to do a fraud investigation. It takes 60 days. After that, your payments will just start. Well, 60 days goes by and she gets an email back and says, we were able to identify that this indeed was fraud. You will not be charged anything. We're like, what? She responds again and is like, listen, no, we have the fridge at our house. And they're like, we don't know what to tell you. We've already closed it. I don't know what we're supposed to do. We tried to pay for it. We tried to start it back up, but they deemed that it was fraud. So
It's probably some sort of, at that point they probably got some sort of insurance policy against those kinds of things, and they just write it off. And once that's done, they don't care anymore. My dad had a story similar to that. He sells medical equipment. He deals with a lot of like different paying sources, and so at some point, one of the I don't know, it's a Medicare, Medicaid thing, or a private insurer, or what the deal was, but whoever the payer was, they basically these like latex gloves for a caretaker were ordered. And so he orders them, in bulk. And there's, pick a thing, 50 gloves in one little box. And then
yeah,
there's 50 boxes in the big box or whatever. Well, someone had somehow coded it to reimburse per glove instead of per box.
Mm.
And so a box that has 50, so he gets this, extra large
yeah,
sum of money. He reaches out to him and he's like, hey, I can't, I've gotten overpaid here. Like, I don't really know how, but I'm paid X amount more. And they're like, okay, we'll look into it. Well, he ends up figuring out what happened. So he contacts him back for something that's effect and says, hey, I think here's what happened based on the number of gloves versus number of boxes of gloves, da 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 da. And they're like, oh, well, we don't have any way to reformat that payment and take it back. And he's like, well, okay, but I can't do anything with this money. I wasn't owed it. What do you like? I'm going to send it back to you. Right? You can't send it back to us. And he's like, okay, well, what happens if I spend it? And they're like, well, if we come back and we found we billed you an error, we'll claw it back. And he's like, okay, so can you claw it back now? And they're like, no, we haven't triggered a clawback. And he's like, okay, so I can't spend it because it's not my money that I shouldn't have been paid this, but you can't take it back because, so he's like, what am I supposed to do? So I actually don't have a clue how he ever ended up resolving that, but it's the exact same scenario. It's like, you're
This is
telling the
how Jamie
company, hey,
went
I'm
to
trying to do the
ODU.
right thing. Like, give you money you're owed here. And they're just like, I don't know what to do. Figure it out.
Oh my gosh. I wish
So
somebody
I
would
can't imagine.
accidentally pay me a large sum of money.
Hey, you ain't lying, man. I wouldn't
I
call.
say, I
Everyone
say
takes
large.
mine.
I say large sum of money. I mean, it's latex gloves. I don't imagine it could have been the difference in getting paid, $500 and $5,000. It wasn't,
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not a lot of money, but it wasn't like it was some insane check, which I think was part of the problem. It was like, to an insurance company, is like such a small rounding error that no one seemed to care that much.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I wish somebody would make some rounding errors in my favor.
Sounds like
In
they
a few.
did. You get to keep a bunch of fresh fruit for your kids to not enjoy when they go to someone else's house.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. And yet all the fruit, well, our fruit doesn't die, our vegetables die now. That's what dies at our house.
We've been fighting a fruit fly infestation. This
Oh,
time last year is when we moved into this house, and this time this year again, for whatever reason, I don't know, it's just, you know, fruit fly rut or whatever's going on, but we've come up with all kinds of concoctions and things to fight them. And finally I spent a lot of time with a handheld vacuum on a bowl of fruit the other day, just every time one landed, picking it off one by one. That was actually shockingly enjoyable. And then now he put all the fruit in the refrigerator. Now he's got these little traps she made out of a water bottle and some paper to funnel it. And I don't know, seem to have them under control now, but it's been a trip.
Those
so
traps are
so
crazy.
what's the most effective fruit fly um
Uh,
trap that
I'm a,
you've come across?
so I'm gonna let you in on. It's gonna shock you. Not keeping fruit out in
Hang on.
the open.
Top three
I'll be dang.
fruit fly traps.
So yeah, I mean, putting the fruit up, as obvious as that sounds, with 6 people in a household, that's easier said than done when we're buying, big bags of apples and, 3 things of bananas in one swoop, and we're doing it again the next week. And so we've managed to figure out a way to do it for now. But we poured boiling water and then bleach down all the sinks because they apparently lay eggs or something in the sinks. I don't know. I'm going by what I Google. And then she's got some concoction of like vinegar and something else, and then you put like a couple of fruit peels down in it, and then a water bottle, and then a piece of paper that create the funnel. She's holding it up right now, pointing at me. She's real proud of it. And then she tapes the funnel on it so like they can get in the top of it to get down in that fruit, but then the opening at the hole, it's like a cricket. It's like a cricket carrier. Same kind of principle. You
Yeah.
put them in the top, and then they can't climb up the walls. Oh wait, hang on. We're going to get a special appearance from this disgusting looking fruit fly trap.
Let's see it. Let the people see it.
So you got the fairly
Okay.
decent
What is
opening.
it?
You guys
I'm
working
pretty
on
sure
a patent on that thing?
I mean,
I don't
That's
know.
nasty.
Sorry.
Yes.
that's some grade A fruit fly trap in there.
Bro, they got 100 of them in there. I need to build one of those.
Well, for a small fee, I can send you one, and if you finance it, you'll never have to see a payment on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fraud claim.
Yeah. Sorry. We just had like, I don't know if it was a cat or something making a bunch of noise outside my door. And then Delaney opened the door and then it stopped. So I may have a new cat. I don't know. So we'll keep you
I
updated
thought maybe
on that.
I was praying, man. I was thinking maybe Delaney was coming to tell you, like, hey, I'm going into labor. And I was going to be like, now me and Jamie have to finish this podcast all on our own.
That would
No,
make
what
a
are we gonna
great
do?
episode.
Yeah, he'll just carry it with him. We'll just do it live.
Yeah.
So
We're
here's the
heading
thing
to the
there.
hospital right now, folks.
The OB told my wife that like, hey, if you start going into labor, like as long as we're not like crowning and about to actually have the child, they're still doing a C-section. It's like I have this fear now that like my wife, because I know she wants to have a natural birth, but it's just like it's not gonna happen. But like I know if she starts going into labor, she's gonna wait like an hour and a half before she like lets me know that it's happening. So I've had, like there was one morning I was sitting here doing my Bible study, and, like, I just had this, like, thing in my head of I don't know if I call it a vision or what, but, like, I just started imagining my wife having a baby at the house. Well, she's also had a dream of her having this baby
So
at the
weird.
house. So, I'm worried at this point, like, I'm sitting here, we have 3 children, and they're all, uh, C-section babies. And so I'm like sitting here, like, not only do I not have medical equipment here, I don't know the first thing about a natural childbirth as to I'm sitting here like, how long do you wait to cut the cord? What's gonna happen if I
Just
do?
call
Like,
me, man. I've watched a bunch of 'em. Just call me. Be
we'll
fine.
just start a podcast up, just a
If
live episode.
I
if
could
Blake
almost
doesn't
walk you through an
answer,
epidural.
yeah, if Blake doesn't answer, maybe try calling. You can call my wife, or I don't know, a
Yeah,
doctor, or but you can call Blake first. He's
I'll call
got it.
Blake first. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Don't FaceTime or anything like that. Just call. Okay.
Blake, don't look. Just tell me.
Yeah. Just don't FaceTime. Just call. I've watched epidurals. I've watched everything. It's always wild.
Yeah. Oh
Cut
man.
cords,
Yeah. There you
nothing
go.
to it.
So I've heard that cutting the cord, it's not as easy as you think. That it's
I
more
thought it
of
was
a
crazy.
so maybe whoever I talked to just didn't have a good pair of scissors there.
It's not a good scissors.
Yeah.
I
So
found
they're
the only
using
time
those
I didn't
plastic, the safety scissors.
I didn't do it on the last one, but I was kind of mad, like because they were like, it was like he was extremely premature, and I was like, they were trying to like celebrate, and I'm kind of like, get him. I don't care about cutting that. Like, move him, go, because he's
Yeah.
like 3 pounds, and they're like, Dad, you want to cut the cord? I'm like, no, like we didn't even
And
know we were
and you
having a baby until like 5 minutes ago.
and that's a whole
No,
story from like one of the
yeah,
last
yeah, yeah, yeah,
podcasts of like y'all were what,
yeah.
28 weeks?
Something like that, 28 and 29, yeah, and so, like,
And you're just out eating dinner with your friends.
we were at Texas Roadhouse an hour ago, and then it
Sta
was like, I'm not even kidding, dude, smashing rolls, man, like, nothing's going on, made about halfway home, and it was like,
honey butter induces early delivery.
Yeah.
yeah,
I need to take my
if
wife I got a
an argument
$10
could be
gift card
made.
for a I got a I got maybe I don't know if it's a $10 gift card or a free bloomin' onion or something. Bloomin' onions at Waffle
Out
Outback.
Outback Waffle
Yeah.
House.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So
called, they got this cactus blossom, that's what it's
Yeah.
called at
Cactus Blossom.
Texas.
There you go.
Yeah, you're welcome,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're
Hey,
welcome,
listen. Just take your OBGYN with you to dinner and tell him you're buying him dinner. Load up on the honey butter, and then you're covered.
you're
There you
good,
go. There you
yeah.
go. I don't even know who my wife's OB is now because she switched like last week because there's some stuff going on in Fort
We're in
Smith right
crunch time.
now.
Right under the
Yeah,
trade
yeah.
deadline.
So one of the hospitals closed in Fort Smith, and so there's some stuff going on where there's like not many beds at the main hospital, and so she's like, I'm not dealing with that. So she's like, she called up here and they're like, hey, will you take me? Like, how far along are you? No, but
That dude, she's different than most women. Most women are, like, attached to their OBGYN. My wife's had the same one the whole time. I don't think my wife would she'd just sit there and hold the baby in if that doctor couldn't be there. I don't know what she would
Well,
do. I don't know what she would
back
do if the doctor couldn't be there one time.
back
It's
to the
never
cord
happened
cutting
though.
thing. I didn't.
Go ahead.
I didn't. I agree with Blake. I didn't find it to be that difficult, except for the fact that our doctor he didn't tell me what I was doing. He just kind of turned on holding it, and he's holding his hands about that close together, and he's just like, and I just looked at him. I'm like, I started like thinking that something's wrong, and he's like not wanting to
Mm.
say it out loud, and he just like kind of looks at me. He's like, cut. And some nurse like hands me a pair of scissors or whatever it is. I didn't even know what it was. I wouldn't pay that much attention. And his hands are this far apart, and all I can think of is like, don't cut this man's finger off, because I mean he's holding it just like
Yeah.
that. Oh, that's the only thing I think. Just don't cut the doctor's finger off 10 seconds after he's delivered your kid.
That's a valuable finger
It's
as well too.
oh yeah. Those things are so crazy because those docs are so everyone does it in whatever your line of work is, but they're so detached from what's going on there because it's a daily occurrence for them, and they're super good at what they do, and everyone's a specialist. So it's like they don't like this. I think it was my last one. Yeah, they had him up on the table, and they had to run an IV through his belly button, and it's like this little mini little thing, and the doc's just like, "Dad, come here, check this out," and he's just
Yes.
kind of like bragging.
Yeah.
He's like, "Watch this." He was like, "Watch this. What do you think about this?" And he was like, I mean, that was like it was crazy, dude. And he was. I had to give him his flowers. You know what I mean? I was like,
Yeah.
"That's pretty cool."
Thanks in the
Yeah. I don't know what you just did, man, but you're proud of it. It looked cool, so
Oh
helping my little
man.
boy. So that's all that matters, I guess.
Mm, yeah.
But it's just
Yeah.
crazy because it's
That's
like my kid's fixing to go to the NICU, and we really don't know,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? But those
yeah.
doctors are just like, "You want to
They've
cut the
seen it so
cord?"
mu
Or yeah, yeah. They're
Yeah.
just it's
Well,
that feeling that you
yeah.
have that they're done this over and over again.
And they know things to look for immediately of like this baby's doing well or not, like so but they don't vocalize. And even if they did vocalize, I don't know if it'd make you feel any better because
Mm-mm.
like in my head, you're looking at the circumstances, not what's in front of your face at the moment.
It
So
wouldn't even matter. Yeah, like you said, I mean, they had already called an ambulance from the other hospital where the NICU was before the baby's even born. You know what I mean? Like as soon
yeah.
as they realized that there was no turning back and like she's having a baby, they were already. I mean, they were there. They were in there. Like whenever by the time that they were trying to cut the cord, the paramedics were already in there. That's how quick
Mm,
it was. Yeah.
yeah. Mm, yeah. That's that's a lot different situation than like the NICU stay that we had with Hudson because it was, I mean, all that stuff was so planned out in advance that it was
Mm.
like we kind of knew what was going to happen the whole time. Like you were, you, like you said, you were smashing Texas Roadhouse rolls an hour before that. Yeah.
We haven't had a single one that came when it was supposed to. Not one. Maggie was like 5 weeks early or something like that. Abel was the exact same early as Maggie, and then this last one, Post was born super, super early.
So
All of them,
did
you're just not ready.
so were you kind of Oh, I mean, obviously you weren't ready at 28 weeks, but did you
Mm.
kinda already have that in the back of your head a little bit of like, I would be
Yeah, but
surprised if this baby makes it to 40 weeks," but
the last 2 were born at 36 weeks. The last 2. So we're just I kinda was thinking we'd be closer to 36,
yeah,
but
yeah,
we were way off from that. So no, we weren't like every time we're stupid. We just get caught by surprise over and over again.
yeah,
Same
Hey,
surprise.
listen, we didn't I all our kids, kinda came different ways, but the the nothing, you go from however many kids you had that day to finding out you're going to pick up, a kid of whatever age.
Yeah.
So that happened with, Luke, we got him, he was 9 months old, but Tucker he'd just been born. But the best one was Emma. I'm staying, we didn't have a girl, we had 3 boys. They're all, right at 2 years apart between the 3 of them. And so I was pretty content. I was like, "Hey, we got 3, but wouldn't mind having a girl, whatever." So me and Allie kinda talked about it. She'd only been pregnant once, and so we're like, "Do we wanna do that again? Do we wa" I was like, "Man, I can see where this is going. It's gonna be we get pregnant again, we have a boy, and she still wants a girl, and we end up with
Mm.
5 or 6." And, like, that's so I kinda, like, honestly didn't think it was, like, a real serious statement at the time, but she clearly took it seriously because I had said, like, "I'm okay with 1 more if we wanna have a girl, but that means it's gonna have to be another adoption because that's the only way to make sure it's a girl, right? Like, otherwise, we're
yeah,
rolling the dice, and who knows where we're gonna end up before we get a girl." And so I left the house one morning, in October, and I'm standing on the first tee of a tee box of a golf tournament at 8:58, going to tee off at 9 o'clock, and get a text, SOS, emergency 911, call now. And so at the time, our oldest Luke was not super medically stable. He was fine, but like it was not uncommon to have a ER visit, every couple months. And so I run over, pick up the phone, call her. I'm like, hey, what's going on? Do I need to leave? Like, what's wrong? And she's like, well, I did something kind of bad. And I immediately know it's not serious, but also like, you know, she'll text me or call me sometimes when I'm playing golf. But if it's a tournament, she usually knows like I like to be competitive, and she'll give me my space to kind of do my thing, and then we'll talk after the round or whatever. And so I was like, okay, well, like I'm at this point in my head is she spent too much money on something. She backed her car into something, something that I'm not going to be thrilled about, that felt like a big deal that she needed to tell me. But also now that she's got me on the phone, maybe doesn't want to tell me. And I was like, okay, well, like you got to tell me now, because I can't spend this whole match wondering about
Yeah.
whatever it is has gone wrong. And she goes, well, when you get home tonight, we're gonna have baby girl, bye, and hangs up. And I was like, wait, what? Like, what do we? So I pick up the phone. I'm like calling her back. I'm like, hey, wait, what did you say again? It sounded like you said we're gonna have a girl. And she's like, yeah, well, they called and I just said yes and figured you'd be fine with it because you said, we got a girl, great. Um, and so I teed off or I guess I was about to tee off that morning with 3 kids, and I came home and uh did like a 50-foot eagle putt to win the match in the last hole, which is awesome. Makes the story even better. Got home that night and we had you know, I guess she was 3 months old at that point, but it had been in the NICU. And she was, I think, 2 or 3 months premature. So it had been in the NICU up to that point. So when she discharged to us. Um, but yeah, it was, talking about pounding Texas Roadhouse rolls or not being prepared. That not having any idea that that was even on the table when you left the house at 8 o'clock, and by 9 o'clock you're getting found out that you got another one. It was an interesting time.
Dude.
Yeah, that's
Hey, praise God though. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah, man, and shout out to both of y'all for you know Jamie adopting 3 kiddos, and
Yeah,
Blake,
man.
your story as well too, and that's there's never enough people that can't help out with that, um, fostering whatever you can do, because there's plenty of kiddos who need help. So
Can can I
yeah,
hit a soapbox for just a second?
let's hear it.
For
Let's
sure.
hear it.
Just for anyone that listens, this has always been the like most one of the most shocking statistics. Like I do politics, I do policy. There, I had a professor in college who say figures don't lie, but liars figure. Like you can make numbers and stats and graphs and whatever back up, whatever side you want, by picking around on it. But the one that's always like really stuck with me was, and this one's Arkansas specific, but I'm true. It's probably generally true in most, if not all, states. Which was if every single church had one foster family, we would have an excess of foster families by, I think it was like 1,200 or 1,300. It was a big number. You'd have an excess. You'd have every kid in a home that needs a place to go with an excess margin for, ups and downs of numbers and all that stuff by a large factor. And that it's like, it's a bit oversimplified, but it's not really. Like that's not that impractical of a thing. And so, we'd always have friends that, would say things like, well, we would foster if we could, we can't right now, which is true. I'm not saying that's not true in certain times or in certain scenarios or for certain people or whatever. But I just always give the example of we had a friend from college who was really liked the idea of fostering. She worked at a hospital. I think she's a respiratory therapist, but was single, in her 20s, working at a hospital. We got Emma. It was COVID. And I think she's a respiratory therapist. She had, pretty busy time going on at work, stressful, crazy, whatever. And so she just said, like, I can't really foster, but I can help. And so, while we've got still 3 really small boys and one who's got some medical issues and doesn't sleep real well. So now we've got a newborn, and newborn's been, you know, born with drug addiction and stuff. So they don't sleep super well. And so just a lot going on and not a lot of sleep. And so she just said, hey, about a weekend a month, I'm going to come pick her up. I'll pick her up from daycare or from y'all or whatever on Friday, and I'm going to keep her until Sunday evening, and I'll bring her over. And so she did that, and it was, it doesn't sound like a big thing, but not
Yeah.
having the newborn and getting to sleep a little bit more and all that stuff was super helpful. Obviously we had tons of other people that, one gave us a crib and we found out we were getting a random set of twins and we only had one crib or whatever. And so if every church would say, hey, like we may not have 20 foster families, we may have one. If you have 20,
Yeah.
great. Um, bigger churches, I think that's way more feasible. But even if you only had a church of 100 people, you could find one family. You could also then find somebody that says, hey, they need help getting their kids to, their biological kids or their foster kid or whatever, to a practice that we're on the team of, or hey, we're going to make them dinner on Monday nights, or hey, we're going to, our kids' hand-me-downs are going to be that kid's size. We're going to make sure they've always got clothes, and like just kind of pieced together everything else to help. One, it makes it easier for that foster family, but two, like that's everybody participating in what the church is supposed to be doing. And so the statistic is relatively simple. It's obviously there's way more complexities and logistics to figure out to make that work for each family or church or whatever it is. But the root point of it is like we're failing somewhere as a church if that statistic is that true and so glaring. Is that like we have a shortage of foster families right now, at least in Arkansas. That's again probably true everywhere. We have a shortage of foster families. We do not have a shortage of churches. And
Mm,
so something ain't square in there.
yeah. Amen.
Yeah,
Amen, man.
dude,
Yeah.
100%. It
Ugh.
makes me think like, so, you know, it kind of goes back to that we talk about like playing church all the time, and like the religion side of the house where, going through the motions at church at a church versus being part of a church is two totally different things. And I think there are a lot of churches out there that where most people there just go there on Sunday, and are it's not as much of a community where folks are helping each other and different things like that. Where and like you said, man, that's a crazy statistic. I've never heard that. One
Yeah.
one family from every church, and there'd be an excess. And there's never an
Mm,
excess. I mean, like, we're
yeah.
nowhere near an excess in any state, probably. Most people don't. If you even mention foster care, most of the time it's always anytime I ever say it, and I don't talk about it a lot with people. And even when I do, I don't like say, "Hey, you should get into fostering." Really, I kind of just and I guess probably because most people give you like a, "Oh man, we really should do that," but whatever. It's like I know there's different circumstances, and we have our house is closed right now. Um, we're not taking foster children right now, but it's just one of those deals. Everybody has something to say, and it's usually kind of negative in my experience.
Yeah.
I haven't had. There's usually a like, "Hey, you guys are great for doing that," but here's
Yeah.
the 10 reasons I can't do that. It's like,
My
And
favorite one.
and
Okay.
no, I was just gonna say, Jamie, like you really I'd like our big reason is like how many small children we have in the house. Like that's constantly like what we would say is like I would love to help out and foster, but I don't really feel like I have the time or really, just for some safety things. Like sometimes I'm not always comfortable of like if it was, a newborn, then yes, I feel like it would we could handle that. But that's something that we've kind of talked about is just like with uh all the small children we have around, like how feasible is it? But you sit there talking about like if you can't help out, like if you can't actually be someone who's going to foster or aren't going to make that decision, like go find someone who does and help them, like even just maybe make them a casserole, make them a dinner one night and be like, hey, I'd
Mow their
love
yard.
to. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, anything. I mean, just
No.
anything that, and to me, for me, it was always super encouraging. Again, it may have been something, I don't want to say small because like I'm not saying the gesture was small, but it doesn't have to be like, hey, they bought us a car, right? Like it could be
Yeah.
something as simple as, hey, here's a gift card for you and your wife to go out on a date night. And here's, $50 to pay for a babysitter because that's hard for y'all to do right now or whatever. Just the fact that people would do that it just gives you a little like you feel like you got a little backup and you're not just doing something on your own. Um, Blake, back to what you're saying, people tend to have something negative to say. It's always, and to be clear, this is not knocking about it. I think it comes from a good place, but it's always, thinking about it once you've done it and been around it. One of my favorite ones, and it tends to happen a lot is someone would say like, oh, I would love to do that, but we just love them too much. We couldn't give them back. And that, again, I think that's well intended, right? Like they want to
it's
love the
true.
kid. And
Yeah,
yeah, and that may be
I can
true,
speak
but
to that. Yeah.
totally, sure, 100%. I'm not saying it's not true. My point is what's the alternative? If we don't have enough foster families, is that being hard for you going to outweigh like this kid's sleeping in a DHS office or what? I'm not trying to make it
Yeah.
Oh,
inflate
yeah.
the scenario, but like really think about what
Well,
it is
that's
are
a
we
real thing.
saying. And so we went through all our classes and stuff for one specific kid that Allie had as a patient in the NICU, and they could not find a home for. And he was, I mean, he was very, very poor, like bad off health wise. He was on
Mm.
oxygen, he was on a feeding tube. He could not like he was a year old and he still looked like an infant. Like he was, just very, very rough shape. And so we were going through these classes, and Allie, really wanted to get him out. He'd never been outside. He turned a year old in a hospital bed because they'd have some families come see him and they'd be like, we can't handle that. So we didn't have kids at the
Yeah.
time. We just bought our first house and had, a couple extra rooms, and she's already at NICU, and, felt like we were kind of in a unique position to be able to do it. And so we're going through these classes, and she kept asking me, she's like, what if he goes home? What if he goes to someone else? And I was like, if he goes to someone else, that's great. There was another kid that'll need another place to go. Which, at the time I was just trying to like kind of make a broader point and keep her from focusing on what this, in her head was potentially a terrible thing. She really loved this kid, wanted to come home with us. And sure enough, the day before we got open, he went home to his mom through a whole legal fiasco with how the case had been handled and stuff. But the next day we were actually leaving for Smackover for a golf tournament, intersection of many stories. And, a, a a nurse from down the hall comes and gets the research worker who knew Allie was down the hall at NICU. This kid was in PICU. She texts me and is like, hey, when you pick me up from the hospital, go to Smackover, bring the pack and play. I was like, why is that? And she was like, and she sent me a picture of what is now our first picture of Luke, which is our oldest. And he was in PICU down the hall. But anyways, her talking about like that one kid and how much we wanted him. And like, yeah, I'm not saying that that's not difficult. Well, obviously she was, we were both upset. She was really upset, him being her patient and stuff, that, that case got tossed or whatever. But, God has larger plans. And, again, I didn't know that's what was going to happen. Honestly, I thought he was going to come home with us, and me saying that about another kid or whatever was just kind of trying to help put her at ease that, it won't be the end
Yeah.
of the world if this crazy scenario happens. And sure enough, it did. And, sure enough, it worked out.
Yeah. Mm. Man, so I just read James again with one of my other friends, um, and this is on my mind right here. James 1 verses 26 and 27 says, if anyone thinks he
Mhm.
is religious and does not bridle his tongue but deceives his heart, this person's religion is worthless. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction and to keep oneself unstained from the world. Specifically there, to visit orphan, like, e- even if you're not gonna adopt or foster, like, go spend time with these kids, go spend time with these families, invest in the people who have a calling to do this, and have chosen to sacrifice their time and their life um to do this and help out, because it's literally what we're called to do. It's the purest form of our religion with God, is visiting orphans and widows.
That verse is always why I hated people saying, well, I love Jesus, but I'm not religious. It's like, I mean, again, I get what they're going for, but
Yeah.
it says true religion is
Yeah.
this,
Mhm. Yeah.
like religion is a good thing. When it's true, pure and undefiled, as it says. Um, yeah, I've always loved that verse. It's one of my favorites.
When it's not false religion. You know? I've-
Yeah,
mm,
like to practice religion, right? You could interpret it like that. To practice religion is to visit the widows and the orphans in their affliction.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
That's one of my
Well,
favorites. I'm glad you brought that up.
yeah, and it just, if I hadn't have just read James, it wouldn't be on my mind. But here we are with James, reading James, talking about James.
That verse used to be on my, like, I don't really, yeah, it is. It still is. If you go to my Facebook, that's the only thing underneath my profile picture is James 127. Doesn't even have the
Oh,
full
wow.
verse, just this.
Look at that.
Look at God. Hey,
Yeah.
there we go.
I'm pretty sure it's highlighted in my Bible. I've It's one of my go-tos for sure.
That's awesome. Well, I know we got a little bit of scripture we wanted to get into today. Um, did did you want to kind of start off with what you kind of had planned, Blake, and we can kind of talk about that a little bit.
Sure, sure, sure. No, so I'd sent this to Landon. It's, being First Corinthians 9, I'd sent this to Landon last week. Because I thought we'd get Jamie talking on some not about politics, but about his uh political ventures. And maybe we still can after, but this just caught my eye. This is the randomest thing ever. I have this dude I worked with back in the day, named Derek, and I'll send out my scriptures to a bunch of people. I'll send a text to like, I don't know, there's like 30 people that I send verses to probably once or twice a week. And he's one of them. And he's super involved in his church. We don't hang out a lot, but he randomly texted me uh First Corinthians 9, and it was like verse I think like 19, pretty much on through the rest of the chapter. And he just sent it to me. He's like, "What do you think about this?" And that was all the context of the text. He's like, "What do you think about this?" So I read through it a couple of times, and it just reminded me of like it reminded me of politics, wherein like politics, the way that what Paul's fixing to explain about bringing others to Christ. In politics, it may be a little bit more of like a negative connotation, but it just reminded me of politics, like because he's going to talk here about basically blending in with different cultures and kind of becoming like the people that you're looking to lead Christ to. Let's see where I probably need to start. Yeah, I'll start in verse 19. It's 1 Corinthians 9:19. Uh, For though I be free from all men, yet have I made myself servant unto all that I might gain the more. And unto the Jews I became as a Jew, that I might gain the Jews. To them that are under the law, as under the law, that I might gain them that are under the law. To them that are without the law, as without the law, being not without law to God, but under the law of Christ, that I might gain them that are without law. To the weak became I weak, that I might gain the weak. I made I made all things to all men, that I might by all means save some. Um, I won't read it all the way through, but he's just kind of he's referencing. Um, there's a couple of times, like once with the unto the Jews I became a Jew. He's referring to whenever he got circumcised in Acts 16, and then in Acts 18, I never really figured that out, but he shaves his head for some vow that he made with some other group of folks in Acts 18. Basically, what he's saying is, hey, or at least the way I took it and the way I texted this guy back and explained my thoughts on it were finding common ground with folks, um, and not, and Landon, we talk about chapter 8 of First Corinthians all the time when they're talking about unclean meat
Yeah,
and things like that. And it's although God has said we can eat what we want, if it comes down to what you're eating is causing a offense to someone else, don't eat it. Right. Essentially, like even though we're saying that we're saying the bacon's not unclean, if there's this group of folks over here that need Jesus and they think the bacon's unclean, don't eat the bacon. Right.
yeah,
So it made me think a little bit of like, because your first thought is, well, if I'm like that, then I'm not being myself. And that's kind of how I read it the first time. It's like lying, right? In a way, like just being different, not being yourself. But the more I thought on it, I read back through it. It's like, well, not necessarily, right? It's more like finding the common ground with somebody, making sure to not cause offenses in one area that are going to blind them from seeing what you're trying to present to them, which is the good news of Christ, right? So I don't know. What do you guys think about it?
Well, on the bacon analogy, I agree. Not that the Bible doesn't say we can't eat bacon anymore, or we're free to eat bacon. It also doesn't say
Right,
you have to eat bacon, right?
right.
And don't get me wrong, I love bacon.
Me
We're
too.
red blooded Americans, but it
Praise
doesn't say
God.
you have to eat. you have to eat bacon. And as much as we may want to defend bacon, again, like you said that about not being yourself, like that's kind of what we're called to do is deny ourselves. And yeah, just because I like bacon, if I know that that person over there is, if somebody's coming to your house for dinner and they're a vegan, I fundamentally disagree with that. But I'm probably not going to slap down a medium rare steak on their plate and be like, enjoy, right? Like that wouldn't get the dinner off to a great start. It wouldn't set you off to have a good time. You would know where that's going. And so I take it to mean a similar thing, right? Like ultimately, he says, right, I'm under Christ's law. I have to follow those laws. But beyond that, I need to, you know, get to know these people in the same way that, we all have small children. How many times they show up and want to talk to you about something that you could care less about, right? But you pretend to care, and we not even pretend to care. It's not, again, to your point about lying. It's not that you're lying. You don't have to be personally interested in it, but you care because they care about it.
Yeah.
And that's going to make that person more receptive to the things you care about. I mean, that's just human nature. And that's building a relationship. And, that's how I take it. That's what I take it to mean is if I'm not, if they're not doing something that's a violation of God's law, which is what I am under, then, who am I? Why does it matter that I like bacon or, pick what other analogy you want to have? If that's something that's going to be in the way of, showing this person God's love, then, you know, don't do it or try not to do it. Right. Like obviously we're not perfect or we don't know that something might be the case, but that's how I read it is, it's not, I have fun. You said that reminded about politics. I have told many, many, many candidates to not try to be all things to all people. Because in politics, that's a good way to make everyone mad. You're never going to make everybody
Yeah.
happy, right? Like you got to identify what your message is, what you believe in, and like hit those things and make the point to why your side's better than the other. But not totally dissimilar is you also can't alienate people either. So they may agree with you 90% of the time, but if you die on this one hill that's just a non-starter for that other percent of people, you're going to lose them, even though they want to agree with you on everything else. And so again, in some ways it's not the same because you can't be everything to everyone in politics. It's not ever going to work that way because not everybody's going to agree. But on the flip side, like I do think it is just generally human nature on like how do you get someone to listen to whatever message it is you're bringing, without alienating them on something that may not really matter as much in the grand scheme of things. Which obviously in this case, the things Paul's talking about, he did to become like them were not violations of God's law, so they obviously do not matter as much as the thing he was trying to do, which is win them for Christ.
Yeah.
Amen.
And
I couldn't have said that better if I tried.
yeah. And I was I didn't have this thought the times we went through this before, but as you're reading that there, um, is in verse 22, and he said, "To the weak I became weak that I might win the weak." And I just had the thought of like, how far are we willing to go to meet people where they are to bring them to Christ? Like, obviously, like we shouldn't become an alcoholic to reach the alcoholics. Um, but like, are we willing to lower ourselves and like go meet the homeless where they are to bring them to them? Like, there's a lot of times where, and I've talked about this on here, is where I get in the way of my witness because I just don't inconvenience myself. Like, there's so many things going on in life that it's easy for me to just think to myself of like, I've got a wife and a bunch of children at home. Like, I don't have time to stop and talk to this person, or I just get so focused in a one track mind of like, I've had a long day today, so I need to get home. But like, what if an inconvenience to your day leads to one person being saved? Like, does is that worth it to you? And if the answer is no, then we need to have another conversation. But like, to me, that's something that's convicting me is like, why am I not willing to go further to reach people more often? Uh,
I said that about the foster care example. Um, and so to go reverse soapbox here, I use that example to say like people will say, oh, well, we would if we could, or we would if we could. But like, how many times do we do that? I do that on something else, right? Like it's easy for me to use
Mhm.
the foster example as someone who's actually had a foster kid. And, I hopefully it doesn't sound to people like I'm being like, well, you say this and that's bad. You should not say that.
yeah,
That's not what I'm getting at. It's our tendency to internally, not even, I don't think most of the time consciously say, oh, well, I've had a rough day and I'm tired and I need to get home to see my family. So I'm not going to, go out of the way for this person or that person or, whatever it is. Again, not even saying most time it's even a conscious decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's the same kind of thing as like, I can internally dialogue through that foster care scenario very easily, having been on the other side of that decision of, we went over the hump to actually do it. And I remember
Mhm.
saying and thinking those things. That's easy, for me to talk about and be like, oh yeah, and it come across very haughty and whatever. But that's also very difficult, to realize that you're doing in the moment. And I do it every day, multiple times a day. I'm sure, even with my own kids, right? Like, how many times have I, do I not go out of my way to be like, yeah, well, I don't want to do that thing, or I'm tired, or I'm this, or I'm that, and just show them like, some even a small form of sacrificial love, um,
Yeah.
that may point them in a different direction instead of oh well, that's just it's not for me right now, or that's not the right time for me to go do this or deal with that person, or you know they smell bad or they're different than me or whatever that may be.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do y'all think? Oh, my bad, Landon, go ahead.
No, 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 go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
What do y'all think, we were talking about, like, bacon and all that. It's not really a super realistic, like, thing that you would run into now other than if it was just someone of another religion. But I don't think it would be like I was eating bacon and it offended them, so now I can't share Jesus other than, like I said, other religions that believe that. But what do y'all think some situations are today that, like, Christians would run into where they would have to make themselves like that person? Not necessarily like that person, right? But they would have to get down on that person's level, find a like interest, right, in order to share Christ. Like, I don't know if y'all have any examples or anything like that.
I mean, to me, even just because we've kind of talked about it, one of the things that's like really tough, and to be honest, I think this is like one of Satan's many uh, tricks and deceptions that he's done to us
Mm.
is politics are so divisive now. There's no
Oh yeah.
there's hardly no gray area, and more I feel like more and more sides, especially if you get on social media at all. Um, More and more people are moving away from anywhere close to the middle, and it's very clear on you're this side or this side. And I think a lot of that's happening with good and evil as well too in the world today as well. The further on we go, but um, you can't sacrifice the things that you truly believe, as far as like not just I like this person and not this person, but like the part of your politics that you drawn based off of what you believe the Bible says. Like that's a non-negotiable for me. The things that have bled into my politics there, which is most where my politics kind of begins and ends. But
Which Paul addresses as well, like
yeah,
under the law. You know,
yeah,
obviously we're
but
not wavering from being from under the law.
but it also can get so in the way of trying to reach people, because as soon as you make known whichever way you lean or not, they have, and this goes on both sides of the aisle, like there's so many things that are just like kind of preconceived notions that the world has filled us full with, of like this person is this because they
Mm.
believe this, and instead of just this is this person, and I don't know if that makes sense or not, but
Yeah.
It
like
does.
I don't know. It's we have to definitely. It's a weird line to toe of like standing on what we believe, rooted in our faith, and also meeting people in a graceful manner of where does this conversation start as well too.
Mm.
I have always found, and obviously, we live in an overwhelmingly one-sided state, happens to be my side. Um, and so, you don't need the minority party for a ton of stuff, but it is, you got to work with them, you got to deal with them.
Yeah.
They've got our candidates that are their constituents or whatever. And then for me, at least when I was in the governor's office, my job was, no one voted for me. They voted for her. For her, they
Uh-huh.
voted, they voted for the legislators that I'm interacting with, but they didn't vote for me. And so I always tried to be, at least best I could. Not always easy, when just dealing with people in any job or capacity where there's struggles and disagreements and whatever. But I always found it at least useful to not ever I've not ever been known to like be, reserved on what my opinion is or unwilling to tell it. But as I have gotten a little bit older, so not very old, but a little bit older, um, I found it just as easy to have conversations with Democrats as I did Republicans for the most part. As I got to know them. So going back to the all things to all people, you find that they're people too. They got day jobs, they've got kids, they've got tons of other stuff. We're all Arkansans. Um, we went to the same college, or we're a fan of the same professional sports team, or you build those things that are not politics. But even then, when approaching specifically, let's go with and talk, try to just address what I would call the more biblically rooted political issues. We can litigate taxes and regulations, and I'm not saying that those may not broach into some of that, but some of the issues are a little more clearly kind of a moral faith-based, foundation for some, not for everybody necessarily, but in how they arrive at that position. But at least trying to sympathize and understand what positive motive could they have for arriving at that conclusion. So mine's obviously going to be rooted in faith, and what I would believe is God's position, if for lack of a better term, or kind of what's the morally biblical take on this issue, or best I can tell. um, but even if they're not approaching it from a biblical standpoint, they are attempting to approach it from some level of these type of issues, from some level of like caring about someone somewhere in whatever the equation or issue is. And so at least trying to sympathize with, why is it that you care about, you know how are they weighting who's involved in each scenario, right? Like you hear, people talk about taxes and debating who's going to get taxed more or less or whatever. If just for a dry scenario here, not no names or anything, but you got a Republican that's like, hey, we need to, eliminate income taxes, right? And you got a Democrat that's like, no, we need to pay for X, Y, and Z services for the poor. Those things may not actually be that far apart. They may have different reasons that they come to those positions, but ultimately the Republican would tell you, hey, I want to eliminate the taxes because that's going to unleash the economy, and unleashing the economy means more money in people's pockets. And when they have more money in people's pockets, then businesses grow, they hire more people, the wages go up, and that's good for the poor. And then the Democrat would say, well, if we eliminate those taxes, we can't pay for these vital services. Those vital services help people that are poor, avoid extreme poverty, or death, or whatever the example may be. And if without that kind of safety net foundation to build off of, they're never going to escape poverty. So really not saying two different things, right? They both inherently are trying to, if you try to at least approach it from everyone's, coming at it from an honest place of trying to do good, they want the same thing. They may just fundamentally and totally diverge on what that thing is. And so when it's not one of those moral issues, if you can try to talk to someone and reason with them and go through like, who is it they care about in this scenario the most, right? And I don't say that to mean they don't care about everybody. I'm just saying like, everybody's constantly having to balance in politics or government or policy, who's affected in what way by what thing. Um, I found that to be super useful and very productive in having conversations and relationships with people that I probably would never vote with on hardly anything. But we can have like a real actual conversation and walk away from it. And I've gotten to be friends with people who are, again, totally politically diametrically opposed in a day and age where we say things like politics has gotten so divisive. And that don't wrong,
Yeah.
that's really true.
And I'm
But
not helping that conversation either by bringing that up, I'm sure, but
well, I'm not even disagreeing with it. I'm just saying it is still possible. But ultimately, the biggest thing, in my opinion, to do all of that is to get off of this little thing and actually like sit down and talk with someone, because people, they tend to get a lot less bold and a lot less aggressive in calling you, pick a name that, you could be called to the internet. That's horrible.
yeah.
When you, just see them
What about
face to face.
devil worshippers?
Yeah. I had a, I had a guy that was just
That's what they call
constantly
us.
always,
Yeah.
they just constantly in my mentions, just on anything I tweeted politically or said politically or retweeted or whatever. He's just always beating it. And finally one day, I don't even know why I did this, but it's the only time I've ever done it. I just tweeted it back and I was like, hey man, I see you live in Little Rock. Like, why don't we get lunch one day and talk about this? And first he took me up on it, and we had lunch and we had a great time. And he's never tweeted me one negative thing since then.
There you
Like,
go.
we had a good conversation. We went our separate ways. Hadn't seen him since. Probably never will. But he just, I think at some point was like, wait, there's a real person and they have other things besides politics going on in their life. And, it's just easy to get lost in the void of yelling and your side, my side. I mean, it happens with sports too, right? Like, I hate
Yeah.
Kentucky basketball fans. Can't stand them. They're terrible people and all in need of God.
Yeah.
But, I've got friends that are actual Kentucky fans, and we sit and talk about basketball. It's a sincere conversation. If I tweet something about Kentucky basketball, it gets very heated very quickly on the internet with a lot of people who don't have a desire to put their name or face on what they're saying.
Yeah. And people are just a lot of times as well too, just a lot more vulnerable in person than they ever would be. No one's gonna be vulnerable over the internet. Like
It's
that's
not built
dumb.
for it.
So yeah.
No,
Yeah.
and you have things like tone and body language and things you don't have when you're just typing things into, you know, like you're not
Yeah.
even seeing the person. I think there's something to that too, the
Ones and
visual.
zeros, hard to get those things across.
Yeah.
Mm.
The internet's a crazy
Yeah.
place, man.
Here we are.
Yeah,
It
here we
is
are.
that.
Here we are on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Y'all don't quit listening to this though.
No, get back on the internet to listen
Yeah.
to this. So
Go watch some reels.
As
like,
with most things,
subscribe. Yeah.
and what I think we're
Yeah.
probably as with most things, and I think things we're probably fixing to get into with this next set of verses, but what may be generally bad or even a despotic government, as like I said, we'll get into with the other Romans verses,
Yeah.
God can still use for his own good.
Yeah, exactly. And
Amen.
you're leading me right into it, Jamie. So
Love it.
Romans 13. We'll just start in verse 1. I'll go for a second and we can kind of talk about it. But let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Would you have no fear of the one who is in authority? Then do what is good, and you will receive his approval, for he is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain, for he is the servant of God, an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer. Therefore, one must be in subjection not only to avoid God's wrath, but also for the sake of conscience. For because of this, you also pay taxes, for the authorities are ministers of God, attending to this very thing. Pay to all what is owed to them, taxes to whom taxes are owed, revenue to whom revenue is owed, respect to whom respect is owed, honor to whom honor is owed. And reading that, I think it's easy for me to like right off the bat for the things as a conservative that I stand for. It's like, yes, we need to get behind these things. We need to sit there. But then like I start thinking as well too, like uh, how did I act whenever there were Democrats in places of power as well too? Of like, um, did I show them the respect and honor that that person's supposed to have as well too? And um, like the answer is probably no for me there. Just being honest, and that's a convicting part for me. Like as I'm reading this right now, of um it doesn't matter who the person is there, um, whether you agree with them or not, there's still due respect for the position that they've been placed in. What are
Yeah,
y'all's
I
thoughts
think
on some of those?
one, I said this start. I find this set of verses extremely difficult. Um, I think partially some of it's contextual. Not that the Bible only applies in certain contexts, but I do think the context is important, right? So he's writing to early Christians, under a a, a Roman authority who is not friendly to them. Um,
Yeah,
you've got Christians in you know the Roman forces, and the question of like, can they be that and this? You've got Christians living within, you know, as you know, under authority that is, persecuting them. To what extent, I can't remember exactly when this is, when this is falling, but it's not a friendly time. Um, and so the instinct to go, well, they should stand up to, you know, the authority and whatever. And it's difficult to, I think, one, square that nowadays where, it's things are complex, right? Like he's writing to a very early church on how to handle a very, you know, unique circumstance. Again, not to say that doesn't, what he's saying here doesn't apply to us. I think it's just how it's applying to them and kind of how it applies is difficult to square down to like specific examples. There's people that will use this to say I've heard I was reading on this, and one of the a significant pastor had said basically that America was founded in sin because we were founded out of resisting the authority that God had placed. Um, I don't agree with that. It's not really I don't I think that's a real oversimplification. I think I think they would have disagreed with the founding of America having been resistant to an authority they were actually subject to. Um, I think they would have resisted to that statement because the authority they were even potentially subject to in the king had declared himself the head of the church, which is obviously, not reality. It's not, God ordained. And so they would have been justified in resisting that. And I think that's, this is where kind of the difficult line to walk is like, okay, well, if you lived in Nazi Germany, does that mean you just have to submit to Hitler because, God allowed him to be the Fuhrer? Like, no, I don't think that's what that's saying, of course. I do think it is generally getting at the gist. If I was boiling it, what I think it's saying down, and I reserve the right to be totally wrong and informed of such by you or anyone else in the future, um, is basically that like you are subject to earthly authority. That authority is vested in by God. That does not mean they are going to be Christians, and does not mean they are going to do always or even usually Christian things. It does mean that you are still a citizen of, pick a thing, city, county, country, whatever, and therefore subject to their laws. And insofar as those laws are not violating God's laws, then you should be a faithful citizen in following them. And insofar as they're not, violating God's laws or compelling, someone to, you know, commit
Break.
sin.
Yeah.
Obviously, right? You go back, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. Would it have been submitting to authority to bow before the idol? No, of course not, right? Because the ultimate authority is God, and there shall be no gods before Him. So they did not do it, and they were, earthly punishment. The sword was dealt out. Obviously, it didn't work.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's inherently saying that you can never resist authority, and we should just ignore it and take it just the same way that I think it's made me think of the verse, that says, basically a slave submit to your master. That doesn't, people use that, I think, to justify slavery, saying, oh, well, the Bible is saying, like, hey, slave, shut up and just
Yeah.
accept that this is okay and allowed. I don't think that's what it's saying. I think it's saying basically approach these authorities with a level of humility and meekness and model citizenry in this case. Um, again, going back to being all things to all people, right? If we're following the laws, we're being good citizens, we're paying our taxes, you know, most other people are going to be doing those things as well. And that is going to basically put us, in the world, not of the world type thing. Um, so I'll stop talking at this point, but that's kind of a general summary of kind of how I viewed it.
Yeah. I agree with that. I definitely think like, kind of a mix between what you're talking about and Landon. Let's say there's a law that you totally disagree with, but you don't biblically disagree with it. It doesn't go against anything that you're not allowed to follow as a Christian, right? That God's law supersedes. It's just you think it's stupid or whatever, right? I mean, seriously, those are the instances where it's like, I got to be a model citizen here, right? Because I'm a part of this
Seatbelt laws.
community. I I hate seatbelt laws. I think it's the dumbest thing on the planet, but I still wear my seatbelt,
Don't wear 'em.
right? So, like, I could get on a tangent about that. Don't even get me started. Who does it? How did they? That has to be an insurance lobby. It had to have been an insurance company lobby to get them to pass that. Like, it doesn't even make sense. It hurts who? It hurts me. The only person that's going to die is me.
Well,
Anyways, still wear
your
my
tax
seatbelt.
dollars do fund like a third of the country's health care. So if they do, if they're doing it and you're paying out for them going through the windshield, it kind of hurts you too indirectly.
Yeah.
That would be the argument.
Yeah, but ultimately, the insurance companies are probably the ones that wanted it the most.
or the guys that make seatbelts.
Yeah,
Well,
seatbelt manufacturers. It's the
well, and
seatbelt lobby.
if they just made vehicles the way they used to, we wouldn't even need seatbelts anymore. It's
Mm-mm, you
because all
die as
this
soon as you hit the dash.
it's because all this aluminum now. That's the issue.
Dude,
Uh,
I'm telling
I
you.
and one of the verses I did want to kind of talk about was sorry.
I'm
I
surprised you're not fogging your camera up.
I'm not that close. But I do have a lot of hot air. So, I think it was three. For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Would you have no fear of the one who is in authority? Then do what is good, and you will receive his approval. For he is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. For he is a servant of God, an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer. And that is just a like I think of that also like in our walk with Christ. Like, um, yes, we are supposed to have a healthy fear of the Lord, um, but like it's not as much like as long as you're a follower of Christ, like you're not scared of God. In a sense of like I don't walk out the door afraid every day that God's going to strike me down. Um, but also I know that He has the power to if need be. But
And
you
he'd be
know,
totally justified.
Exactly,
And then
exactly.
some. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But, man, and I completely forgot where I was going with this, but just, like, that kinda just stuck out to me of, like, you know, even in living in sin and different things there of, like, um, if you don't wanna feel shame, from your sin, if you don't wanna feel guilt, if you don't wanna feel anything, like, turn from your sin. And it's not saying that we're not going to ever sin again, but it's the same thing. If you don't want this thing, if you don't want to be afraid of the law, then follow the law. And that's harder said than done with biblical law because there's a lot of things to follow, and some of it isn't relevant today as far as like the laws of sacrifice and all that was part of the first covenant. But it is just a very simple thing that would go a long way in today's society of like problems with how people feel about the police and different things of like if you don't like the police, then don't do anything wrong. And I understand there's these one-off cases here and there, and I don't want to justify and ramble back and forth on all these things, but it is one of those things of like if you don't do anything wrong, you've got nothing to be afraid of.
Yes, I agree with your general sentiment there. And I think there's an interesting aspect of this verse and we talked about it a little bit before we started here, but that puts this on a different and the same time, same group of people because it applies to everyone, but a different
Yeah,
kind of orient to reading those verses is if you are in person in a position of authority. And I think it's referring to government here, but it's not just talking about government. So, you're a pastor, you're a teacher, you're, obviously a government official in some capacity. Anyone a boss at work, someone in a position of authority is who it's speaking to. And so to orient that verse kind of differently in reading it, if we're all in some level of authority in some way, right? Like whether it's authority over our children in our household, whether it's, we're some sort of official, we're a boss at work, whatever it is, we all have some level of authority somewhere in our life. And so reading it kind of from a different slant of, okay, if I am in a position of authority, then what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. And if I'm not doing that thing, like I am not obeying, right? Like it says that do not fear the ruler, like he bears the sword for a reason. Well, yes, that is how God intended it. That's what they're saying is the ruler is supposed to be doing. But obviously we know that's not the case, right? The Iranian regime massacring citizens protesting their maltreatment by their government. I don't think that those rulers are necessarily doling out just and holy punishment, right? Um,
yeah,
and so it's an interesting, you know, I think it's an interesting kind of different side to look at it there is if you are in a position of authority, and God has put you in that position. Again, what may feel like not that much authority to you, to the person you're under the authority of may matter very greatly, and how you treat that person is going to reflect, at least for Christians, your faith and the position God has put you in to show what that faith looks like in a position of authority, which obviously, you know, in any way is going to make someone that much more sensitive. It's the same reason that I think pastors are called to be beyond reproach, is because if you give someone a reason to question that authority, they'll begin to question other things that they maybe shouldn't question because you're right about them, but you've given them that kind of crack in the door. It's
Mhm.
like, well, yeah, you were wrong over here. So now how can I trust that you're not wrong over here? Um, and so I think it's an interesting kind of perspective to look at it. I think it, like most things, applies to everyone differently and to different extents, right?
Yeah.
Probably bears a little more weight for someone who's the president or some ruler somewhere over a country than it does to you know pick a daily thing here. But those things still matter, and the people that were either are under that authority or just watching someone exercise that authority, are going to have an opinion on whether it's just or not. Um, and so for a Christian, I think it's really important perspective to say, what authority do I have? Am I exercising it appropriately for the right reasons? And, you know, for something that's not selfish or worldly or sinful.
Amen. Such a tough subject.
It is. It is. And you were talking about, with our children as well too, of like I've just seen whenever they've broken the law of my house and have not swung the sword of the law that should have came down, and the tyrants that they turn into whenever whenever judgment has not been brought down for the laws that they broke. So
There's a
there's
verse
a
about that too, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Few of them.
There- There's a big
yeah,
billboard outside Little Rock. I can't. I think it's going toward Memphis right now, but it's just a big billboard that says "Spare the rod, spoil the child."
yeah,
I don't know who paid for it. I don't know what precipitated it being there or what kid messed up so badly that this parent was like, I got to let everybody else know. But it is
yeah.
a full size billboard right there off the interstate. That's what it says.
Oh, that's fantastic.
In my opinion, one of the greatest things you can do is to buy out a billboard to put something on it that doesn't make you any money. You just spend the money just to just to
Get
put
your
it out there.
message.
Yep,
Yeah.
whatever I gotta say, like, just put it out there, dude.
What would Blake Rudell put on a nonprofit billboard?
I don't even know, dude. It's a good question. I'd
What
probably
is
put
that's a
seatbelt
tough
laws are
one.
stupid. That could say that. No, I wouldn't do that. I don't know. What about y'all? I don't know.
Mm.
Oh, I don't know. Buy a minivan. I just bought a minivan, so um, yeah.
I told somebody about your minivan today.
Did you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were in a minivan at work, and I was like, my buddy just bought one of these.
Thing's slick, man. I'm thinking about selling my truck, buying a second one. So
You should. I support it.
yeah, I'm digging the minivan, dude. So
They're dope. Yeah,
yeah.
dude, you can. It's crazy, right? So like, park a minivan, like a Chrysler specifically, right next to like a Tahoe,
Mhm.
and I'm telling you, fold the seats down, you can fit more stuff in the minivan by far
Oh, you for
than
sure
you'll
can.
ever fit in that stupid Tahoe that it just appears to have room, but has none. I don't
I
know
don't
how
know.
they do
Yeah.
it. How do they make
Yeah.
that Tahoe so big and it has no, it can't put anything in it?
It's your go look at them side by side. The floor of that minivan starts about that high off the
I
ground. The
know.
floor of that Tahoe starts about that high off the ground. That's a
I
lot of cargo
know.
space you're losing out on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy, dude. Y'all have like the bins landing right behind. So there, it's like big holes in the floor right behind the passenger and driver's seat. That
The stow the
they,
stowing guy.
bro, so they have big buckets in them, right? So you could put a bunch of stuff, but then you could pull those out and fold the seats into it. It's the
For
best. It's,
for
yeah.
these last 2 weeks
Cody Stringer level engineering.
yeah, for these last 2 weeks while we have only 3 children, one of those bucket seats is folded down, and it's fantastic. I mean,
I
we
remember those
unlock
days.
we unlock the car, the kids go in push the button on the handle, and they just crawl right in, go buckle themselves up. Things are good. Nobody's gotten a finger smashed yet. So,
Man, I've
Do they
tried to get
fight
out.
over who pushes it?
I
what were we
try to
saying?
get out. I try to get out of the Go minivan. Actually, we had this conversation like a week ago because we've got couple friends from Washita that they just got one. We're talking about how great it is, and they've got 4 kids about the same ages. And she just will not do it. She will die on the Yukon XL, Tahoe Suburban size vehicle. I mean, she's got an XL and I've got a Yukon, so like we've got two of them, and
Yeah.
they're great. I love the car, but I'm like minivans. We had one time for
Mm.
an insurance claim after a wreck or something, and I loved it. It's great, and she will not do it. She listen. I can get her to go into a pond head first. I can get her to fall in love with duck hunting. I can get her to move out of the city into the woods and live off a gravel road. I can do a lot of things, but she will die on the minivan hill.
Hey,
See, yeah,
some of the new Honda Odysseys have shop vacs built into the back of them. One of the
That's
coolest things
incredible.
I've ever seen. One of the
yeah, they
coolest
do.
things.
That's dope.
I opened it up because this came into my work, and I opened it up, the little container, and it was just full of like sucker sticks and all kinds of. I was like, this is fantastic. Like
That's
this,
genius.
That
yeah,
is genius.
yeah, and it fully like stows up, and then out of the cargo, you just pull it out, and it reaches all the way to the very front seats. The hose does. Uh,
That's
it's the
someone
coolest, and
someone deserves a raise.
I agree.
They probably
I
got
agree.
one.
And it's even a shop vac brand shop vac
Wow. So
in
they
the
got like
cart.
the
Yeah,
real deal.
the real deal. Yeah,
Man, that's
yeah.
crazy.
I wonder, like, have you seen the Kia Carnivals?
Mhm.
They have the seats that stow away like limousine seats, so like they can be in rows, so then they can like spin and go up against the walls like limousine seats. So like empty space in the middle, and
Yeah,
everybody's just sitting on the wall. Just the coolest thing ever, man.
it's
This looks like a party. I saw a commercial about one. It just looked like a party going on in there, man.
yeah,
All you need is like a disco ball.
yeah. We were burned by a Hyundai engine, so I stay away
Mm.
from Hyundai and Kia. So
Dude, so I've heard that too, but I got a, buddy, shout out Dalton Jones,
right,
and Ashley, they have like an old Hyundai. I think he's put a motor in it too, but I think it was like just incredibly cheap to do so
yeah,
in comparison to other vehicles. But dude, it's like a little crossover. I borrowed it one time. Sweet ride, bro. I don't know how to explain it. Just smooth, nice little like it's a Hyundai.
is it a Tucson?
Might be a Tucson, bro. It might be a Tucson. And
Yeah,
it's, yeah, it was like it's like a 2011, 2012. Dude, they just keep it around, throw a new motor in it, good to go.
Have y'all ever ridden in a Genesis?
mhm, yeah,
So let me tell you. So we went. This has been 2 years ago, and I went with the governor, and we did like a foreign trade trip. And so we meet with companies that have a presence in Arkansas, and we're trying to just sell them on expanding, or we're going to meet with companies that we've got reason to believe they may be looking to expand, out of business, build more U.S. presence, and we've got some steel industry in Northeast right now is huge, tons of companies over there, dealing with steel, especially in light of the tariffs and stuff. So we're like angling for that business, and just really, I mean, Arkansas from a global perspective, not hugely on the map, as I'm sure not a shocker to people. So it's really fun to get to those trips are always never cool. One, you get to go somewhere you've never seen, and two, just talking about Arkansas, right? And we're sitting in a meeting with Panasonic, which does a bazillion things, but a ton of them run on batteries, and like they know Smackover because that's where the lithium's
Lithium.
potentially at.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and so that was super cool. But one of the meetings we'd had was we went and we're like jetting across town, like 5 o'clock traffic in Tokyo. It's just utterly insane just being there. And like, we're going to meet with like the heads of Hyundai Genesis Group, Kia Hyundai Genesis. I think Genesis is spun off now as its own thing. But anyways, we have this super incredible dinner with these like, guys that honestly I probably shouldn't even be in the room with. And, we're talking about car manufacturing and EVs specifically and lithium and, Smackover, of course, because that's where all roads run through. And we're going to leave, and we'd just taken like a taxi to get over there. Um, and they were like, "Oh, where's your car parked? Did you valet, whatever, at their big headquarters thing?" I mean, it's in like Tokyo proper. And we're like, "Oh no, we just taxied." They're like, "Oh no, that's unacceptable. We'll get you a car." And so, it's a car company. We're expecting them to have cars, right? And they pull up in whatever the nicest Genesis car is. And so it was the car I was in was just me and the governor and then the driver guy. And so we get in and he's like, telling us about what we can do with our seats and stuff. And it's the back seat has like full on like neck back massagers, heated, cooled. You had like your own climate control for your seat versus their seat. And like we were just the whole ride, we just talked about how, you know, I didn't know a ton about Genesis. I knew it was like their higher grade vehicle, but man, this thing was crazy nice and had everything you could possibly think except for a shop vac to put in a vehicle.
There you go.
Now I can't speak for
Yeah.
how reliable they are long term, but from a nice
Yeah.
like quality of that ride perspective, I'm not sure you could beat it. It was awesome.
No. My dad has a Genesis, and yeah, they're very nice. They're very nice. They do the interior extremely well.
It was yeah. It looked like I mean again I'm not bagging on Genesis. I don't know a ton about it, but like if you ask me to list like nicest car brands, we're gonna go with the ones that everyone freaks out about when you see them on the road. The inside of
Mhm.
this car was as good as as anything.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
I have to check them out. I don't think I've ever I didn't even I've heard of it, but I don't even know I've never rode in one or anything.
Yeah, I think it used to be a Hyundai Genesis, and now they've spun
Okay.
Genesis off as its own, like it's just Genesis, and then they've got like different numbers for the models or whatever. It's kind of its own line now, but
Yeah.
they're
Like
cool.
Ram, Dodge, and
Yeah.
then Ram.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Jamie, you have anything else on your mind or heart you want to share with anyone?
No, other than I think I briefly mentioned it here, but it's just because it's cool and like kids are getting older and they're just getting to the point now they want to like do stuff and they're old enough to like really start getting into stuff that like adults also happen to kind of like, but they're not old enough to realize like they think it's not cool to hang out with their parents yet. Um, and so like we're just kind of hitting that sweet spot of uh, doing stuff not just for them, but like really with them.
Mhm.
And so, obviously, like I took them deer hunting. They both missed their first deers last year. Um, well, Tucker shot once inside our front door, about 20 feet from where I'm sitting on opening day because I didn't have a blind set up yet, and he just was like, "Dad, there's deer." So he shot one there. That's a long story, but I ended up shooting the same deer a week later, and it had a big hole blown out of its back of its shoulder, and been going around with the wound because he ran out there straight to it the minute he shot it when I went inside to get my shoes, and spooked it off, and it managed to live and limp around long enough till I shot it again a week later. Um, but I say all that to say we got into it with our kids, but from a hunting perspective, I did not grow up being a duck hunter. My dad said, dad always said like, "Oh, we're too poor to duck hunt," and so like we didn't have a boat, we didn't have a shotgun, we didn't duck hunt at all. And so every year, kind of since high school, I've gotten more and more and more into it. But last year, we had a friend of a friend type thing. They were like, "Hey, if you want to go any this week, we're going week of Thanksgiving, great." And so I was like, "Yeah, I'll go, as many times you'll have me." And so that first time, the friend of a friend, intermediate friend there is a lady that Allie does some work with. And she was like, Allie's like, "Hey, are you going?" And she was like, "Yeah, I'm probably going to go tomorrow." And I was like, "Well, I'll go." And so I'm telling you, from that first time, which we killed like 5 or 6 ducks, it was not a substantial hunt where it's like, the perfect day and you've got a 6-man limit in an hour and everybody goes home with,
Yeah.
as many as you could take with you. And it was not that at all. It was a 45-degree and kind of raining and muddy and just gross looking day and not a ton of ducks and not a ton of action. And I think my wife fired her gun one time. And when I asked her, she killed her first duck because, like, obviously we're like trying to hype it up. She was like, "No," and I was like, "Yeah, you don't be too hard on yourself. Like everybody was shooting, like you need to claim your first duck." And she's like, "No." I was like, "Well, why not?" And she was like, "Well, because I didn't see any ducks. I just shot off in the hole when everybody else started shooting." Um, so that day, toward the end of the hunt, somebody was, one of them was asking about going the next day, and I was like, yeah, I'd like to go. And I kind of looked at Allie in my head, thinking like, I'm kind of asking permission here. Can I go again tomorrow, type thing? And she goes, oh yeah, I'm in tomorrow too. And we ended up going like 4 of the next 5 days. The only thing she wanted for Christmas was a shotgun and her own waders, and she has them both now. We got to take the boys last year, and they loved it. And so just getting to do that with them has been super cool. But she has gone like she's in like a meeting today, and she's texting me about like, you know, do I think this size of this certain, camo piece of gear will fit if she's this size and this other one, and da 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 da. And that's been really fun. Just, it's on my mind this week, because I found a place, at least, to hunt out with some guys. Got to go look at it and kind of finalize that whole deal yesterday. Um, and just, anticipation of getting to do it. One, just getting to do it, but two, getting to do it them and the boys getting older. Emma, is just, she will be 6, I guess, by the time this season rolls along. She won't get to shoot, but we'll take her and just let her be there. But she cries every time we go because she wants to go so bad. And
Oh,
that's super cool. So I know y'all got kids a little on the younger side, but that stuff just gets way more fun. My boys have gotten, I mean, they're both love sports generally, but one's a diehard footballer, one's a diehard basketballer. Um, and yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
And then
That is
moving out here has been even better because we get to do all that kind of stuff all the time.
that is awesome, man. That's awesome.
that is great.
The if you allow your kids to if you slow down for your kids and enjoy those moments, like it's so special. It's so easy to get like, well, this my kids are slowing me down. I'm not gonna kill anything because they're there with me. But like the once you get out there in it, once you get there and doing it, and like see their face of how much they're enjoying it, it really is cool.
Yeah. I put my oldest on that deer last year, and he missed it with a crossbow and shot that deer feeder. We were talking about that 2 or 3 days ago. He was like, "You remember when I shot Pops' deer feeder?" Like, "Yeah, I remember. How could I
Yeah.
forget?"
It's so funny too with kids because that's where the story ends. Like there's no more to it. You remember whenever I
Yeah.
did that? Yep. And then you're
Yep.
like waiting and no,
Hilarious.
that's the end of it.
But I'm the
So,
same way, man. I'll be up at academy, like, thinking about, "Okay, what's the best youth model?" And I'm looking at rifles, and I'm just kinda, like, trying to figure out, so he's my oldest, and he's 6. So, um and he'll be 7 during deer season, towards the end of deer season. And I'm just thinking about what rifle can I get that I can float through all the kids,
yeah,
in that youth model. I think I'm gonna get a 308 for him.
yeah.
I don't know what yet.
That's what that's what Logan just bought for his oldest last year as well.
Did he?
308. I don't know how it went, but he bought it. So,
Ours were using, we borrowed, I will, the boys know they have to earn, they each are going to earn their own shotgun, just like a pump single shot thing. Um, and then I'm not gonna buy 2 deer rifles because they're not ever gonna need them separately. But we borrowed a friend's youth Winchester 243 last year,
Mm,
and it was the right size. I mean, the only reason they both missed the last weekend, same day. We let Tripp shoot first and Tucker shoot second, and they both missed. And it wasn't for lack of patience. They did a good job of being patient and wait until they felt comfortable and whatever. I think they just, you know, kind of spazzed out. But also, I this year I'm going to play a little better. We were in just like a ground blind, and I had like a single shooting stick, but it did not have any sort of stability to it, right? So you can, swing it all around, whatever. And I think they needed something a little more stable because they're obviously just not able to hold the gun up on there. That one Tucker from our front door, I was literally back. I was holding it from the middle of it, just like, like that. Um, and I think, he managed, it felt stable enough that he felt all right with it, but I need to plan better this year before that. But that 243 did well. I mean, I actually shot the same deer at that 243 because Allie wanted to shoot the next weekend.
mm.
Uh, was opening weekend after that when he shot and ran off, and we didn't find after spending all day looking for it. And she wanted to switch chairs with me. And I kept telling her where the deer would come from, most likely. she wasn't gonna be able to get a shot. She didn't think she could get stable in that chair. So we swapped chairs. As soon as we do, deer walked out. She was like, "I can't shoot. You shoot it." And I shot it with that same 240, that U-243 that's about that long, it feels like. But it did well. I mean, they didn't seem
Nice.
to have a problem with it. They would have been 7. So, like,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
did all right.
Sweet.
Seems like a good option.
Yeah. Well, boys, or men, I guess we're not boys anymore, but I enjoyed it, Jamie. Thanks again for giving us your evening, and
Yeah, man.
you know, don't let us keeping you up lead to making terrible decisions for our great state tomorrow. So
Well, this is about as late as I've been up in a long time. As I previously stated, I'm gonna get up early no matter what, so I gotta go to bed on time or else it ain't gonna be pretty tomorrow. So,
yeah,
but it's worth staying up to talk to you guys, and I appreciate you having me.
yeah, we
Yeah, man. We
appreciate it,
enjoyed it.
Jamie. Well, guys, we'll see you all again next week. We appreciate it. See you.
Later.